It's typically really painful, although Tracey's cat seems to be comfortable, although he's licking it, and that's often something that they'll do if they are painful and if they are uncomfortable. Cats are very good at otherwise hiding the signs of pain. Anal gland problems are not a common issue in cats, but if your cat does suffer from one, if they get an abscess that bursts, do they really need treatment? Can you leave it if your cat seems to be comfortable and otherwise okay? Well, that's the question that I'm answering today, but before we get into that, here's the intro.
Welcome to Call the Vet, the show that answers all your dog and cat questions so they can live healthier, happier lives. And here's your host, veterinarian Dr. Alex Avery.
Welcome to another episode of Call the Vet. This is episode 41, and if we've not met before, then I'm Dr. Alex and I'm the veterinarian behind ourpetshealth.com, and my aim is to bring you pet health information designed to help you and your pet to live a healthier, happier life. So if you love your pet, then that's definitely going to be something that interests you. So hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Now, you can also get your question answered just by heading to callthevet.org. So no matter what it is, no matter what the question's about, whether it's how to look after them, whether it's how to keep them healthy, how to stop them getting sick, or if they are sick or are injured and you're wondering what the best treatment is, how to help them recover, or how to help them cope with a long-term illness, then just head to callthevet.org and you can submit your question for an upcoming episode. And then the last thing that I wanted to talk about before I jump into today's question is just to remind you about my charity calendar for 2020. So this calendar, 20% of all proceeds are going to support the fantastic work done by the Tree of Life for Animals, who are based in rural Rajasthan in northwest India, and they help control street dog population, help treat any animals that need it, from camels to dogs to cows to monkeys, you name it. They look after it, and they also help to reduce the incidence of rabies in people, which is a massively important topic. So head over to ourpetshealth.com/calendar to check out that today. And Tracey sent in today's question, and she wrote, "My 4-year-old male cat seems to have a burst abscessed anal gland on the right side of his anus. He seems okay, he's been licking it and hasn't been sick in any way. He is very active and it seems to be healing up now and closing. Do I need to take my cat to the vet?" So, anal gland problems in cats are actually not particularly common, certainly compared to dogs, where we will see them on a fairly regular basis. So if a cat does have an anal gland issue, then it's definitely something that we need to think about why that is happening, because we can't just put it down to one of those things, or generally we can't just put it down to one of those things. So anal gland abscesses, they normally actually develop after the anal glands fail to empty as normal. And when that happens, the anal gland material, it builds up, it becomes impacted, infection then develops, and that then bursts out into the surrounding tissue. It sets up a big inflammatory reaction. It's typically really painful, although Tracey's cat seems to be comfortable, although he's licking it, and that's often something that they'll do if they are painful and if they are uncomfortable. Cats are very good at otherwise hiding the signs of pain. So what can cause that anal gland problem in the first place? What can cause it to fail to empty as normal? Well, the first thing that is often the cause is actually if the stools have been soft. So it doesn't necessarily mean that your cat needs to have had diarrhea, just that their stools were a little bit softer than normal. And that can be because of the diet that they're being fed. It could be because of an inflammatory bowel disease. Parasites are another cause. So that could be worms, it could be giardia, something like that. And then just an intestinal infection, a gut upset would be another cause. And potentially that's going to be the most common cause, because there isn't always something sinister behind this. The other conditions definitely will need specific treatment, as you can imagine. Now, if we think that the stools are actually normal, then there are still other causes we need to think about. So there could be inflammation in the surrounding area. So it could be that your cat has had a knock, an injury around their back end, and that's caused some inflammation that has stopped the anal glands from emptying as normal. They could have a skin condition as well, for example. There could be an anatomic problem. So this, again, is really why I think we get a lot of anal gland issues in dogs, is that the tubes are maybe more narrow, they're a little bit more wiggly, and so they don't express as you would normally expect them to. Now, cats don't seem to be getting this problem. Having said that, there are more and more breeds that are more and more altered, if you like, in the way that they look. And so it may be something that we start to see more of depending on breeding. Who knows? Something to look out for. And then the other really big cause and potentially most serious cause is actually masses, either in or beside the anal gland. So that could be an actual anal gland tumour, which is thankfully very, very uncommon in cats, or it could be a mass elsewhere, maybe in the colon or in the surrounding soft tissue. So a skin tumour would be an example here. So anal gland abscesses and anal gland impactions, they typically are very painful and they do generally require treatment. Clearly that's not going to be the case in every instance, and I guess a lot of the time they will resolve themselves without treatment, but it's going to take an awful lot longer and your cat is going to be in unnecessary pain and discomfort. So we'll typically treat these with antibiotics to get rid of that infection, with anti-inflammatory painkillers just to keep your cat comfortable, to stop them licking it. If they're licking it all the time, it might be that they need an Elizabethan collar, a head bucket, just to stop them kind of introducing more infection or damaging themselves because they keep licking. And then the final thing that might be needed is that the anal glands might need to be expressed or flushed just to get rid of all of that nasty infected material. And that may mean that your cat needs to be sedated because these are very painful and very often cats won't tolerate an awful lot of handling in that area. So sedation is needed just to get rid of all that rubbish that has built up and burst out into the surrounding tissue. So, an urgent visit isn't required, but given the anal gland problems that they're not common in cats and that there are some potentially serious causes, it's definitely going to be worthwhile getting them checked over and making sure that they get the treatment that they need, and also to make sure that there's no sign of a mass or any other problem like that. I'd also say that straight after an anal gland abscess, or straight after, if you've kind of got to the problem before the anal glands have abscessed and burst out, and a sign that might be a developing problem would be that your cat is maybe scooting their bum along the ground, although cats will often typically just kind of lick and chew around their back end. Now, if we're thinking of things that can cause that, then fleas is another big issue that can cause your cat to overgroom and concentrate around their tail base. But anal glands is definitely something you need to think about, especially if your cat has had a recent flea treatment. But anyway, after your cat has had an anal gland abscess, or if they've had their anal glands expressed before they've abscessed, then I do often find that the anal glands, they actually do fill up quicker than normal. And so I'll typically recommend a re-examination maybe 2 to 4 weeks later, just to make sure that there's no reoccurrence of the problem.
Get your questions answered at callthevet.org.
And so that's it from me for this episode of the podcast. Make sure you're subscribed if you're not already. And if you do have a couple of spare minutes and you've been a long time listener, I'd appreciate it so much if you could head over to Apple Podcasts or wherever it is that you're listening to this episode, just to leave a rating and a review. It helps more than you can imagine with other people discovering this podcast, with other people being recommended it, and it will help me to help more pets, which is absolutely what I'm all about. So thanks for taking the time to do that. Also, remember to check out my charity calendar for 2020. It's going to make a fantastic Christmas present for any pet lover in your life, and you can look at that by heading over to ourpetshealth.com and just following the links to the store there. But anyway, that's it from me. I'm Dr. Alex. This is Call the Vet, and until next time, take care.
You've been listening to Call the Vet. Be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next episode of the show that answers all of your pet questions.